Hello again, everybody. Blaze the cat is a controversial character. Not because she isn't liked, but because her place in Sonic's world doesn't appear to make any sense. Is she the empress of another dimension, or a friend from the future? Does she control fire or get consumed by it? Is she just a female clone of Shadow, or her own unique character? And how can she come from another dimension first in Sonic Rush, but then end up in the future for Sonic 06 with no memory of the previous adventure? Welcome back to Loops and Lore. I'm Ben, and today we are going to be discussing our favorite feline from Sonic's world. Well, our favorite purple, Blaze. We're talking about Blaze. In discussing the mysteries of Sonic's world, one particular character you have asked me to discuss that I myself was very excited to talk about is Blaze. Her first in-game appearance was in Sonic Rush in 2005, where we find out that she is the princess of the Soul Empire and guardian of the Soul Emeralds. Blaze is the fourth playable female character in the Sonic game series, after Amy, Rouge, and Cream, but more importantly, the only one with the firepower needed to keep up with the blue blur. Blaze is standoffish and possesses pyrokinesis, the ability to create flames that the user can manipulate at will, enabling Blaze to have incredible movement and combat abilities, and in the comics, giving her some element of flight. She has a super form as well, making her one of the few non-male hedgehogs to still have one in the main narrative. Although created by the Soul Emeralds and not the Chaos Emeralds, so it's not technically a super transformation, but you get the idea. Where things get confusing though is on the subject of her origin. The Soul Empire is not simply a location we haven't been to before, but an entirely new dimension. She isn't from Sonic's world. However, her next appearance is in Sonic 06, where she is first seen with Silver in the future of Sonic's world. While it's not openly stated in the game, the current narrative states that Silver's time exists 200 years ahead of Sonic's. I'm not sure what Blaze's fur care routine is, but Kitten's looking pretty good for pushing triple digits. In this game, Blaze doesn't have any reaction to her one on-screen moment with Sonic, where the two don't even seem to make eye contact. There are 3 moments prior to this where Blaze mutters about a blue hedgehog, almost as if she's trying to remember but can't. That's pretty crazy, considering they develop a whole friendship together in Sonic Rush, teaming up to stop a pair of Eggmen and sealing a dimensional rift that threatened both their worlds. Looking at Sonic Rush's ending, it's clear that Blaze remembers the games even after the rift is sealed, and that Sonic and Cream remember her as well. But if that's the case, how can neither Blaze or Sonic have any meaningful interaction in 06? Ian Flynn, a writer for the IDW comics, is also a part of SEGA's Lore Council, possessing deep knowledge of things that have yet to be revealed officially or even publicly. Ian has been quoted saying that while he could not reveal everything, he did confirm Sonic Rush does come first, and that the Blaze from 06 is the same Blaze from Sonic Rush. He also clarified that she doesn't die at the end of 06, but rather warps back to her own dimension, where she then forgets the events of 06. This answer is fine, in the sense that it neither contradicts the later released official timeline, nor does it contradict where Blaze originally comes from, or why she would not have working knowledge of these events in Sonic Rush Adventure, which takes place after 06. But it still does not explain why Blaze would be in the Soul Dimension first, and then later end up in the future of Sonic's dimension. Or why she doesn't seem to remember the same hedgehog who she would have had 2 separate adventures with in the past. This is also leaving out the interactions Blaze has with the other characters, including Sonic, and in the IDW comics, which would occur after Rush and 06, but long before the supposed future of Crisis City. Now, you could argue that this is due to Blaze being from a different dimension. Often in fiction, when characters travel across dimensions, they move inadequately through time, meaning that time does not always move at the same speed from one dimension to another. You could spend an entire lifetime inside the magical world beyond the doors of a mysterious closet and emerge at the moment right after you originally left, even being the same age as when you entered. If there was a difference in the flow of time between Blaze and Sonic's dimensions, then Blaze could meet Sonic for the events of Rush, but forget him over the course of the 200-year time skip we go through in 06. The average lifespan of a human is roughly 70 years or so. So Blaze would have lived nearly 3 lifetimes at this point. But we also know from the IDW comics that Blaze can now freely move between dimensions using the power of the Soul Emeralds, and when she does, there is no indication that great periods of time have passed. Nor does a great period of time pass between Sonic ending up accidentally stranded there after the destruction of the Metal Virus and when he returns. At least, not a greater period of time than what passes in his own world. Putting the comics aside, nothing about the events of Rush Adventure leads us to believe that time moves any differently either between the two worlds. Based on this, it isn't likely that the two dimensions exist in streams of time that move any faster or slower than the other. But the whole reason Blaze has knowledge of this ability to move between dimensions in the first place is because of Sonic and her adventures with him. So, if something happened to make her forget about those friendships and connections, it could likely cause her to forget that ability as well, but even if she just forgot them as time went on and she made new friends, wouldn't meeting Silver the Hedgehog and seeing a Chaos Emerald have immediately jogged her memory? Not only that, but Shadow, who multiple people have mistaken Sonic for, has had his own reflection stolen by another character Blaze meets, which should have also stirred something, but nope. Even the mentioning of a blue hedgehog doesn't seem to have stirred anything in her memory. And nor does seeing Sonic cause her to remember anything. But that's not even the strangest part. In the beginning of Silver's story in 06, he says that the world was devastated before he was born, and no one seems to have a direct answer for what caused it. Did Blaze come to Sonic's world during the initial disaster and get stuck there for 200 years? Because if so, she would have known Sonic was somehow involved. Or did she only show up recently? Neither really makes sense. Considering the power of burning Blaze and the Soul Emeralds, if Blaze had the ability to become a vessel for those flames, it seems unlikely she would have not been able to figure this out on her own over the course of 200 years. Nor would she have played sidekick to Silver if that was the case. The fact that Silver seeks the knowledge of a shadowy character for the supposed origin of this disaster and not Blaze suggests that she has not been there for a long period of time. Finally, when Blaze emerges in the past, separated from Silver, she remarks on how different the past of Silver's world looks, which, again, doesn't cause her to remember anything or even to remark about how it is more similar to her own world. So, while Ian's answer fits under the surface, it doesn't help us to make any sense of what still seems like a massive plot hole that even SEGA hasn't offered a better answer for, saying that she simply had amnesia, though this still doesn't make any sense. Now, often, when exploring what appear to be plot holes in Sonic's world and story, we find incredible details hiding below the surface, and this is one of those times. Ian's statement isn't actually wrong, just out of context, and from what little I know about the Bumble King, that was probably his intention. Remember that all he said is that Rush comes first and there is only one blaze. Now, most people assume, because of his wording, that the blaze from Rush is then the blaze from 06, but that's because Ian is speaking in terms of her chronological appearances according to the timeline as it is, not as it was. While Rush does occur first in the perceived timeline, Blaze is not originally from the soul dimension at all. When perceiving the timeline as it stands, most people assume that it's a linear thing, but that's not correct. In Sonic 06's story in particular, we view it as a book that lays open with all of its words and pages there for us to view. But once the events of the game conclude, we assume that that story is now shut forever, leaving only the cover for us to view. So, because of Sonic and Lisa's actions in the past, we assume that time now cycles back to the point where they met, and instead of exploring everything in between, just skips over it to the end of that story. But that's not what happens. Sonic 06 was meant to be a sort of soft reboot for the series, and many things give evidence to that, including Eggman's line about the adventure's main villain attempting to erase all possible timelines. In Sonic's world, time is fluid, meaning that if you have the ability to travel through time, you can see the past as it was, the present as it is, and the future as it will be, assuming you don't change anything. But if an event is changed in the past and followed through to the present, it can continue to have effects into the future, which is what we see throughout all of Sonic's CD, with the good and bad futures directly changing from one level to the next based on Sonic's actions. Blaze is in the future because, like Silver, that is where she is originally from. When she absorbs the power of the Flames of Disaster, she achieves Burning Blaze, but because her physical form was not meant to hold that much power, it disintegrates, leaving only her soul behind. This fits with the statement that, in the main narrative, only male hedgehogs can attain super forms, and perhaps this is why. Here we see the consequences of achieving similar levels of power and what that can do to someone's physical form. We also have to remember that we have 2 Chaos Emeralds in play during this scene, as opposed to when the flames were sealed in Elise, using only 1. Silver may have believed that doubling the emeralds would have doubled his chances, being as he was not a member of the royal family. Blaze, on the other hand, already has a soul alit with flame, and so she uses the emeralds to absorb the power instead, and in one sense, is successful. Given Blaze's power, it's not clear if she even needed the emeralds to force the sealing, much less 2. But the fact that they are there further enforces what happens next. Blaze asks Silver to use his chaos control to stop time and seal her in another dimension. This is an interesting request, as no dimensional travel has occurred in this story. Only back and forth movement in time. Still, Silver appears to resist her request, saying he wouldn't know what to do without her. And as Blaze tells him her feelings, she floats upward and disappears in a burst of light that clears the sky, revealing the sun, a signal that the disaster is finally over. Hidden in the subtext is the truth. Silver's insecurities draw him to sacrifice himself rather than ask for Blaze's help, even though he must have known that her powers would make her a more likely vessel. Not wanting to lose her and be left alone, he would rather sacrifice himself, hoping to find his purpose and value in his light as he offers it for the world. At that time, when Blaze steps in, she reminds him that they had agreed to save the world no matter what the cost, even if that meant her. She doesn't call him naive to mock him, but that he didn't know his own value and placed her life above everyone else. Blaze can't stay in this world. In order to remove the threat, she must exist within a separate dimension to prevent the flames from ever being released again here and keep the power trapped within her. Time is not enough. Distance is not enough. The very fabric of reality must be placed between this world full of tinder and that fire within. This is Blaze's wish. Silver doesn't want to lose her. She's his friend, perhaps the only one he has. Silver wanted to save the world, but a world without her is not one he wants to live in. He knew there would be a price to pay, but some cost is too high. A lesson he learned in his short time with Amy, where she defended Sonic, admitting that she would rather protect him even if it would cost the world to do so. This is Silver's wish. It's important to remember that at this point we don't know if the flames would be released in Elise's time or after. We only know that due to time being fluid, it has yet to be stopped. Despite the three hedgehogs' efforts, the future still remains the same. No way to extinguish this disaster had been found. Only a way to trap it. So, we have two conflicting wishes and two Chaos Emeralds. Blaze indeed is sent to another world. Here, in this dimension, that being's power was dangerous still, but under control. Kept safely in Blaze's soul and under the power of 7 new emeralds. One's uniquely tuned to her and her power. Fire is a power of destructive force, but also that of heat, light, energy. Whether this being's power was consumed to create this dimension and its own reality-altering gems, or if the Soul Emeralds merely help to keep that being sealed in Blaze is unknown. Though Blaze disappearing in a flash that reveals the sun, which in Spanish is the word soul, would certainly suggest that this was the moment the dimension was created. What we do know either way is that this incredible power has caused Blaze to lead a more secluded life, as she doesn't want anyone put in danger because of those flames. So, whether the being itself is still a threat or not, its incredible power still could be. No wonder another false god could not consume existence before the 3 super hogs could rise up to stop him. Part of his power was kept out of reach, or at least still tied to Blaze's soul, which would have not given up easily. I have hinted before that even though Blaze is the only main character not seen in the final ending of 06, this might not be true. She may not be visible to us, but her soul may still be involved in that final conflict. A part of Blaze may have still been there in that moment, helping to buy time, or again, perhaps in the soul dimension, keeping a small amount of that power unavailable to be used against the rest of our cast, and possibly the reason they are kept somewhat safe in the time-space distortion and not destroyed immediately. Either way, Blaze is joined back to Sonic's world and able later to return there during a time that Silver himself is also connected to, meaning that both their wishes can still come true. Her to be sent where she can keep that power from threatening Silver's world, but not in a place where he can't reach her. Beautiful and heartbreaking as this all is, how does it relate to my comment about Ian being taken out of context? Well, Sonic Rush does occur first because we are following the current timeline. Originally, everything plays out as it would up until the events of Rush, which don't happen yet because at this point there is likely no Soul Dimension and no Blaze there either way. So we skip these events until a certain shadowy figure sends Silver and Blaze back to the past. This creates the set of circumstances that lead to the events of 06, which would then allow time to readjust itself to another set of changes, in particular Blaze being sent to the Soul Dimension, which then leads to the story of Sonic Rush. We then bypass 06's story, leading to the brief meeting of Sonic and Elise that we see at the end of that game, and then the timeline goes on. This is also why Blaze seems so different in 06 than how she acts in the Rush games. Blaze is far colder and more reserved in the Rush titles because she now has the responsibility of this great power and empire, which was not true of her in 06, as none of that had happened yet. We don't know if Blaze might unseal the power if she were to cry. She certainly seems able to wield it, but it's likely that becoming overwhelmed by emotion might cause her to unleash a destructive level of power and is potentially part of why she is so reserved. This is not only important character development, but makes Blaze feel more unique and less like a reskinned version of Shadow, our other overpowered, broody, anthropomorphic creature who prefers to keep to himself and work alone, held down by responsibilities from his past. Here though, Blaze, while still broody and wielding incredible power, learns to accept her responsibility with pride and sees it as her purpose, finding balance in her duty as opposed to Shadow, who sees his past very differently and withdraws from others as a result. Still, how do we explain Blaze mumbling about a blue hedgehog in 06? When we return to Sonic and Elise at the end of 06, we assume that we have gone back in time, but we are actually seeing a new timeline being written, with everything we saw before as a glimpse of a timeline that no longer does, but definitely did exist, visible to us because of the time-space disturbance that happens at the climax of that story. Sonic is still drawn to this location despite not needing to be a needle in Eggman's side, and it's here that Elise seems to remember something. Like out of a dream or a person with amnesia. Which is also why Blaze keeps stumbling on the idea of a blue hedgehog. Because even though she hasn't met him yet, the flux of time and the dimensional rift she will soon be exposed to allows her memories to begin to find her. In our future, but her past. And with that, I'm Ben. This has been Loops and Lore. Thanks for watching.